Daf Kuf Yudalid. We're going to start on the top Amr Rav Ashi. Where it says Amr Rav Ashi said, Ke Havina be Rav Huna. When I was in the yeshiva of Rav Huna, the following question was raised before us. Adam Chashuv, the Somchi Alei Kebeitrei. When you have an important person whose testimony is relied upon by the Goyish courts as it were the testimony of two witnesses, says the Goyim court will take out money based on his words. Should the halacha be that he should not testify? He should not testify. Or do I say, since he's an important man, he cannot escape the authorities who demand his testimony. And what's the asudi? And therefore he is able to testify. The Gemara Teiko, it's an unresolved question. Gemara says another situation where a Yid is excommunicated for causing harm to another Yid. In case of a Jewish man who sells a goy a plot of land that is on the border of the property of his fellow Jew, we excommunicate him. My time, what's the reason? If we say it's because he has ignored the right of one whose field borders the field of his neighbor to be the first one offered to purchase the field. But doesn't the Mar say, Zavan Migoy, Zavan Migoy, with regard to one who purchased land from a Goy, and one who sells land to a Goy, like a Mishum of Din the Bar Mitzvah, there is no right of one whose field borders the field of the neighbors to be one offered the purchase of a field. Rather, it's because we say to him, you have placed a lion, a dangerous individual, on my border, as a good might now cause me harm. We excommunicated him that he accepts upon himself the responsibility of all harm that comes upon the neighbor due to the Goy's activities. If customs collectors took one's donkey and gave him a different donkey that was taken from another Yid instead, not listed as ksusay when asli ksus acheres, hareelu shalei. Ipnei shaba olim misyashim behen. So again, if custom collectors took one's donkey and gave him a different donkey that was taken from another Yid in its stead, or bandits took garments and gave him a different garment that was taken from a Yid in its stead, these items are now his because the owners despaired of retrieving them when they were stolen, and they may therefore be acquired by another. The halacha is, in case of one who salvages items from a river or from a troop of soldiers or from bandits, if the owners of the items despaired of retrieving them, they are his. So too a swarm of bees. And the owners despaired of retrieving the bees, they are his. They belong to the one who found them. Rabbi says, a woman or a minor whose testimony is generally not accepted by Beis Din are deemed credible to say, it is from here that the swarm emerged and is therefore belongs to a certain individual. And one may walk into another field in order to salvage his own swarm of bees that has relocated there. And if he damaged some property in the process, he must pay for what he has damaged. But if the bees settled on the branch of trees, he may not cut off the other branches in order to take bees, even on condition that he will give him the money later. It says, he may even cut off the branch and later give him the money of its compensation. Mishnah teaches that one who is given an item by custom collectors or abandoned may keep the item. Tana was taught in a brisa. In Natal, if he took a donkey from the custom collectors, he must return it to the original owners. The Tana of the brisa holds, Kedei Leikani. He holds that the spear alone does not affect legal acquisition. And the cousin collector did not acquire the donkey, and it initially came into the possession of the individual to whom the custom collector gave it illegally, and he is therefore required to return it to the original owners. Those who say in that if he wants to act and come to return it voluntarily, he should return it to the original owners. He's not required to return it. My time. What's the reason? Because the spear alone does alone affect acquisition. Initially, if he says, I do not accept money that's not mine, he returns it to the original owners. The Mishnah teaches that if custom collectors are bandits replace one item with one taken from another, they are now his, because the owner is the spirit of retrieving them when they were stolen. Rashi says, they thought that the owners certainly were miyayish or recovering their property only when it was stolen by a goy. But Yiddish bandits, the owners are not necessarily the spirit recovering it, because Savar is behold that the Lacher Nachtinen Levidino. Tomorrow I'll take him to base and force him to return what he stole. So he asks a shaila, on the contrary, the opposite is more reasonable. Goyim, dealing with Goyim, the Doin Yibigesa was judged a case opposed the verdicts with force. Lemiyash does not the spirit, because he realizes that Goyish courts will enforce the law. He said, but by a Yid, since the Yids, Yiddish courts merely pronounced a verbal decision but do not have the authority to enforce it, Yayish, the victim, the spirits of recovering their property. So Ella Yid Mar Sefer, if you Rashi, distinction was stated, and was stated with regard to the latter clause, and the Mishnah says, Amatzam Nagayim, and I list him, in case of one who salvages an item from a Goyim or from bandits, if it's known that the owner is the spirit of retrieving it, yes, the finder may keep the item, and Stama, but if it's unspecified, where it's not known whether the owner is the spirit, the finder may not keep it. They taught this only when the item was stolen by a Goy. Because the Goyish court judges a case and imposes a verdict with force, and therefore cannot be assumed that the owner is the spirit. But the robbery is committed by a Goyish bandits, even the Amri Meimar, since the court merely pronounces a verbal decision but do not have authority to enforce it, Miyayish, the victim of the spirit, is recovering his property. The discussion with regards to the owner of the spirit retrieving a lost or stolen item, the Gemara says, we learned in the Mishnah in Kolel, with regards to hides that were tanned by the owners himself, thought renders them susceptible to ritual impurity. Hides and leathers are susceptible to contracting tumah only if they are in a finished state. If a private individual uses a piece of hide or leather for a certain purpose, for example, as a cot or a tabletop, and decides that this will be its purpose, is considered a finished product and is susceptible to contracting tumah. Mishel Abdam, with regards to hides belonging to a leather worker, Ein Machshav Metamasa, thought does not render them susceptible to ritual impurity. Since this individual sells leather to others, when he uses a piece of leather for a household purpose and decides that this will be fixed, it will be a fixed purpose, it's not considered a finished state, and he's likely to change his mind and sell the leather to one who will process it further and put it in a different use. Shel Gazlan, if the hides of those are a thief who has stolen them from another, the thief's thought renders them susceptible to tumah. It was not. Shel Ganav, with regards to Ganav, Machshav Matamas, and it does so. Shimon says, you have to reverse the matters. Shel Gazlan is Machshav Mataman, Shel Ganav and Machshav Matamas, and one of the official Nisasha by them. Because the owners have not the spirit of recovering them. Shimon's reasoning is that a robber who seizes his item brazenly is more difficult criminal to apprehend and bring justice than a thief. Amar Ulu says, Machlekes Pistam, the Machlekes is only with regards to an unspecified case, or it is unknown whether or not the owner is the spirit. I will be a dua, where it's known that the owner is the spirit, the Reakol Yish Kani, everybody agrees that the spirit affects acquisition. Rab Mamar, the dua Nami Machlekes, case where it's known, the owner is the spirit, is also dispute. By the Rava, it says, do not disagree with Ula, the Tanam will let the Masis and Kavasih, the Pishal Risasha by them. The time of the Nisasha Bailam. Nisasha Bailam is then our Ilushulai. Amalei, so Rabbi said to him, Anna, if you should use the Bailam mustically. The Mishnah is saying, a Ganav cannot render the hides susceptible to Tumah because there's no true despair for others of stolen goods, even if they state they have the spirit. Tanan, not the Mefsa Chamedi. Learn the Mishnah here that if the custom collectors took one's donkey and replaced it with a donkey taken from another Yid, or its bandits took his garments and replaced it with a garment taken from another Yid, he may keep these items because the owner of the spirit of retrieving them when they were stolen. And we're asked Mani, whose opinion is this? Ida Banan, if it's the Chacham who hold that owner is the spirit in the case. However, a thief was still secretly Kashi Gazlan. It's a Shaili because the Mishnah says, had the victim of a robber also the spirits of retrieving his property, as in the case of the custom collectors. You have a problem of Kashi Ganaf. The Gemara says, Mela, according to Ullah, the Amar Bidua, who says that they all agree if it's known that the owner is spared, Bidua Kani. So the individual in possession of the item acquires them. So Achanami also Bidua with the Verakul. Rabbi says the Amar Bidua Nam Machlekes, Haimani, whose opinion is this? Let it be on a letter of Shimon. My answer, the Mishnah is discussing a case of Bilistim Mizri and armed bandits, Rav Shimon. This is Rav Shimon. If so, this is identical to the case of a robber. So the answer is today, Gavni Gazan, there are two types of robbers, the custom collectors and the armed bandits. Gemara suggests another proof with regards to the Machlekes between Ula and Rabba. Tashma, we learned in a price, a Ganav Gazan Anos, a thief, a robber, and one who forces another to sell him something. Hektish and Hektish, their consecrated items are considered consecrated. And the Trumas and Truma, the Truma is Truma. Ma'as and Meiser, and the ties are considered ties. Mani, whose opinion is this? Ida Bonan, so they have a question of Gazan. And Idib Shimon, Kashna Ganov. Prishlam Lula, Dama Bidua, Koni, Akram Bidu, but the Ragla, Lab Dama Bidu, Nam Machlekes Amani, Acher Lila, but all the Rab Shimon. As is Hachanami, but it's the Mizri, I'm talking about armed robbers, or Shimoni, Fragli Mali Yachi had a Gazlan, I just take Gavni Gazlan. He may say, he can say, Hamasisa, Rabbi, the Tanya Omer, Rabbi Omer Ganav is Ki Gazlan, Kaimalot, Gazlan, like Rabbi Shimon, who holds that the owner is Miyash for recovering his item once it was stolen by a robber. Kufa, let's discuss the matter itself. Rabbi Omer says, I say Ganav Ki Gazlan, I say that like the halacha, like a thief, just like the halacha of a robber. They asked the Shaila. Gazan that Bava Kamah was the Rabbi saying that the halacha that applies to a thief is like the halacha that applies to a robber according to the opinion of the Chachamim, and does not acquire. It didn't look at Gazan and the Reb Shimon Kamar Kani and does acquire. Tashlama, come bring a proof in the Mishnah, not Lumeis and Chamedi. Customs collector took one's donkey and gave him a different donkey that was taken from another Yid, and instead, or bandits took his garments and gave him a different garment that was taken from Yid, and instead these items are now his because the owner of the spirit of retrieving them when they were stolen. Therefore, apparent that the spirit is assumed both in the case of robber, the custom collectors, and the case of a thief. Mani, whose opinion is expressed in the Mishnah, Ida Bonan and Kasha Gazan, Ida Shimon is Kasha Ganaf. Yamas Bishtem Rabbi Gazan, Reb Shimon Kamar, Kani Hamani, Reb Shimon, Hachi Kani, Yamas Gazan, the Rabban Kamar, Malay Kani, Hamani, later Bonan, Reb Shimon, later Bon. It's the same thing. Gazlan. Tashma Ganav Gazlan Mohanas Hekdish Hekdish Tumas Tuma Maisis Spices. Mali Ida be Ida Bon Kasha Gazlan, Reb Shimon Kasha Ganav. So yeah, Muslim Ganav Gazlan, the Reb Shimon Kamar Mishbaki Kani. Yamri is Ganav Gazlan Rabban Hamani. List the museum of Shimon Yachi had a Gazlan, take Gavni Gazlan. All the Rev Asher that about Tashma the Masning come in here are proof from Rabbi's own interpretation of the Mishnah that states that children who inherit an item that was stolen by their father are obligated to return it to its owner if something that serves as a legal guarantee is a loan, for example, land. He says, the master Rabbi, the Rabbi Shimberei, Yehuda, Anasi would teach Shimon his son. That like Dover Shishbrachayas Mamers, the Mishnah is not referring to something that may actually serve as a legal guarantee land. If you look part of a Chiddush Bo, even it's referring to even a cow that he plows with it, or it's referring to even a cow that he plows with, or a donkey that he drives, I directed from behind. Which the Yerushim are obligated to return it because of the father's honor. The reason is due to the honor of their father. Allow kvedaviyim, but if it's not their honor of their father, loy, and not. Shvamina, Rabbi Gazlan. Rabbi the Nasi was saying that the halacha applies to a thief like the halacha of a robber. Gazlan Shimon Kamar, Shvamina. Mishnah teaches and so with regards to swarms of bees, the owner of the spirit of retrieving the bees, they belong to the one who found them. What does it mean that's so? Hachi Kamar, I think where it says, feeling the chil shall evade them, even a swarm of bees, the kinyan rabbanon, which is the property of the owner via rabbinic form acquisition, due to the fact that one cannot affect legal transaction of bees according to Torah. So he would have said that hi kinyan rabbanon ba'amu the kanlei. I feel this stami nami. She would have said that in the case since one acquires the swarm of bees only by rabbinic law, even when the owner's response is unspecified, it can be assumed that they despair of recovering the bees and the find them may keep them. So Gmashmalan, in Misesher Banam is in him, like Arbichim and Regan, and when I see Shavakatan, a woman or a minor is deemed credible to say it was from here that this swarm emerged, and it therefore belongs to a certain individual. Maras Ishavakatan and Edistino, are a woman and a minor eligible for testimony? The law is that the woman and minors cannot present testimony in court. So how could Arbichim and Regan rule that they are deemed credible? We're dealing with a case where the owners were pursuing the bees. And the woman and the minor were speaking offhandedly as saying, I remember, from here that the swarm emerged. When it speaks offhandedly is valid only with regards to testimony, and the Allah is that he is deemed credible. The king is only the Rabban. But in one of the Raisa and there's no case where offhand remarks expressed by those who are ineligible to by a court would be accepted by Torah. I want to be them from a there was an incident involving a certain person who was speaking offhandedly and saying, I remember when I was a child, and I would run on my father's shoulders, he took me from school, and removed my tunic, and immersed me in a mikveh so that I would be able to partake of truma that evening. Rabbi Chanina would conclude this retelling the incident as follows. My friends would separate themselves from me. They would call me Yechon Chalis or Yechon eater of Chalis, in reference to the portion of dough given to the kohanim, which was has the same status as truma. And after hearing this anecdote, Rabbi elevated him to a kohen and granted him the right to partake of truma based on his statement. Since it's also for a non-kohen to consume of truma minatera, it appears that all of that Mashiach of Tumah remarks may be relied upon even with regard minatera, even in cases unrelated to enabling a woman to remarry. So the Gemara says, no, that's Tumah the Rabban. Va'akati for the man is still the Raisa no. Okay, also Rav Dimi or Rav Chana Tartikanasa. But Rav Dimi gave him rights as well. Didn't he say that Rav Chana of Kartanika for a little Achachat Tingel Mashtai, Maizabel of Nirim Shimon and Levi? Story that came in front of Shimon and Levi. The Maizabel of Levi, or what was the story? There was a child who came with Mesiel Fitumah. Ani V'imi, they're born in the Beravim. Yosef Shemayim, Daitel Imi. Look at Daitel Imi. Incident came before Meshum and Levi, and some say the incident came before Rabbi. Throughout a certain child was speaking Mesiel Fitumah and said, my mother and I were captured and held amongst Kayim. When I would go out to draw water, my mind was on my mother. When I would go to gather wood, my mind was on my mother. Since the child was always conscious of his mother, he was aware that she was not violated by her captors. The Rabbi concludes the statement of Dimi and explains the challenge. He stated that Rabbi Al-Piv married her to a kohen based on his statement. Since it's also not Teda for a kohen to marry a woman who was engaged in sexual intercourse, the man forbidden to her min ha-Teda, and with whom she cannot establish marital bonds, for example, a goy, it's clear that Rabbi relied on a Mashiach Mituma even with regards to min ha-Teda. So my answer is b'shvuya kilo, more lenient with regards to captured women. Aval, the Mishnah says, but if bees settled on a branch of trees, he may not cut off the other branches in order to take the bees, even on the condition that it will later give him money for it. Tanya was taught a rice of Shbol V'nei Shavich Tanai based in who? This is a Tanai Bezin. Tanai Bezin no Shiyayel Tzadar Shchaveri Veketz Sech Shchaveri Lahatzos Nechile. It is the stipulation by the Bezdin that one will be permitted to enter another field and cut off another branch in order to salvage his own swarm of bees. The owner of the field then collects the value of the branch from his fellow swarm. But tonight Bezdin no, and it's also a stipulation by the Bezdin that one who sees another honey barrel should pour out his own wine and then use the empty wine barrel to salvage his own honey. And the owner of the wine collects the value of his wine from the other's honey. And it's also a stipulation of the Bezdin that one who sees that another donkey has fallen should unload his own wood from his own donkey. So this reason Yeshua was manchel Yisro.